Check, check. This is Niti, the pharmacist, and welcome to my new series called Walkie Talkie, where I'm talking to you about whatever I'm thinking about in this red hot moment. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so welcome back to my second episode of Walkie Talkie. I missed yesterday. I apologize. I am going to work on it. Every time I try to start one more thing, then it takes, I think, like 3 tries before my new routine really works for me. But let's talk about some history. How did we arrive in this moment? Let's go back. I want to tell a story starting all the way back in 1910. So in 1910, John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie became the primary investors in pharmaceutical medicine. And what they did at that time was they funded this thing called a Flexner Report. They had a Flexner Report that was funded by them to establish a standard of care, amongst other things. Like this Flexner Report was responsible for a lot of things, but one of the big things that it did was it established the standard of care, and it effectively told Congress that you should not use any federal money to fund any medical practice that is recognizing that the body has energy. Yeah, so I don't know about your body, but my body has energy. And that, we are electrical beings. So the Flexner Report stated this, and at that time we had about 13 homeopathic hospitals, institutions in the United States. And there were also a bunch of charlatans, and I guess that kind of cleaned some things up a little bit. But in the end, what happened is that all holistic medicine, or any practice that recognized the body has energy, was effectively put out of business. They were de facto illegal. De facto. What does de facto mean? So if you are not aware, then de facto means that it's not really a law. It's not a real law. It is that if you have an agreement, so for example, if you are a practicing medical physician today and you have a license, you have permission, you are a dietitian, you're a nutritionist, you're anybody, dentist, whatever, anyone in the medical realm who has permission from the institution known as the AMA, it is all operating under this standard of care. And this standard of care was sold to Americans as, hey, Americans are the best in the world. We want to do everything that we can to make sure that, we're getting nothing but the best. This is going to eliminate all the snake oil salesmen, coming from a snake oil salesman. It's really funny because Rockefeller was a snake oil salesman. And so this was going to rid us of all of the folks that are trying to profiteer on junk medicine, basically. And I guess it's fine. I guess it's okay. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. It was based on an incorrect premise, because what it effectively did is it made everyone practice medicine based on chemistry, and not on energy, and not on if we're not energy, our medicine needs to be based on viewing us holistically as electrical beings. I'm going to use an example. Okay, so many of you might be familiar today with, pH. I think a lot of folks are trying to alkalize their body. But the thing is that when you view pH, or pH is a measure of acid and base. It is a measure of acid and base. But pH, when measured in fluid, when pH is measured in fluid, then pH is measured in voltage. It's not measured in an acid-base balance. And we, electrical beings that we are like 99% water. So our pH is based on voltage. It's not based on the acid-base balance or the acid-base measure. And a lot of folks out there, this is all part of the lie. I'm a truth speaker. And one of the big lies right now is that you can only gain health from plants. And there's no evidence of this. There's no evidence of this anywhere. Actually, I'll tell you what the evidence is that every vegan, every plant-based person is deficient in something. In fact, for vegans to actually follow a vegan lifestyle, they have to supplement with, I don't know, watch any kind of get started in veganism video, and they will even tell you how many supplements you need to take. So I find this really fascinating because how do you know? How do you know what you need? How do you know this? Like, how do you know this measure of chemistry? When we're fluid and we are electrical beings, and our chemistry changes every breath. Every time we take a breath, our chemistry is out of balance and changes and shifts. So I don't believe that our bodies are that fragile. In fact, we're quite resilient. Many people have referred to human beings as the cockroaches of the earth. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to really kill somebody. I haven't tried to kill somebody, but I know that it's really, really hard for us to just die. We don't just die that easily. As evidenced by the people who, drink a 40 and do what kind of street drugs, and I don't even know if they even eat food, or they just eat Doritos or nachos, or I don't really know any bad foods because I don't really eat out of the store. It's been a long time, so I know I keep always saying the same one or two things because I don't know. I haven't been in a grocery store shopping for food like that in 12 years. So just eating whatever we get off of our farms. Anyway, back to the topic. Flexner report. This baseline, this established a precedent for a lot of things that are happening today. A lot of things. And I don't think too many people, you don't have to live very long to know that when, like in the 70s, and before that, we didn't really have an obesity problem. Not really. Also, people ate meat and vegetables mostly. And sure, there was some stuff, but like, watch the Brady Bunch, y'all. If you watch an old episode, watch all the episodes of the Brady Bunch. Do you know in the entire series of the Brady Bunch, where they have 6 kids in the late 60s, they're raising 6 kids, and they didn't eat pizza but one, and it was at an Italian restaurant where Peter and Greg had a double date. And so check it out. Even when I was growing up, nobody brought pizza to our house. Home delivery pizza, it didn't happen when I was a kid. I remember we used to go to Godfather's or Pizza Hut or something, and it was an event. It was a Friday night thing. I guess people would go pick up and bring stuff home. We never did. I don't really know too many people that did that, because if you went out, you just went out and you just had it there. People enjoyed the fellowship and just to see other people and to just be out and not be home. So if you went out to eat, it was a big deal. At least in my family, we didn't eat out all the time. And it was always a celebration. I don't mean we only went out for special occasions. I mean that we made a special occasion for us to just be happy and find joy. My mom used to she was a single mom, so she used to take Fridays and that was her day. So we used to eat out on a Friday. It was her one break and her one day that she didn't cook, and we would have dinner out. And a lot of times we went to the local steakhouse, Jack's Steakhouse, that was the name of it. And there weren't chains everywhere. And some family owned that place. And I don't think there was 2 of them. There might have been, but I did not know. I think there was only 1 of them. And I remember we used to go there and me and my sister would have a steak, a chopped steak probably. We didn't really know too much about steaks. And my mom had fish. She might have had a steak. I don't know. I don't think she really ate beef that much. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Back to the Flexner report. That Flexner report, this standard of care, this permission, has managed to de facto, not de jure, this isn't a law. It isn't a real law. Like if you want to practice any other medicine, as long as you don't have a license, if you don't have a license, or if you don't have permission from anybody in an institution, you can practice any other kind of medicine that you want to just by standing on your Constitution, because there is no law. There is no law that says that you can't just operate in universal law or the law of nature and just heal yourself. There's nothing saying that you must go to a doctor if you're sick to get well, or or whatever. You could just stay home. You could just refuse medical treatment. Did you know that? You can. The thing is that there's this really powerful training. The training is, if someone's not licensed, then they're just, they're not knowledgeable. And this is what the problem is. I think it's interesting. It's fascinating. Like, you have farmers. You don't need to have a license to be a farmer. But if you're a regenerative farmer, if you're any kind of farmer, you have to know how to manage your livestock. And I know quite a bit of farmers. I don't know too many farmers that are gonna call a vet every single time for every little thing. They're not. And most regenerative farmers I know, they're not using a vet unless it's an emergency. Like something serious has to be happening. And in those cases, they're not going to probably keep that beast if it's hurt bad enough or something's actually happened, which in most of the regenerative livestock and with the animals, on the farms that I'm dealing with, there's hardly any sickness. I mean, count on one hand how many times there's been a problem. Maybe like on a polyface, that's a bigger operation. They've had a lot. It's a larger scale operation. They've had bigger hits. Normally, it's due to some kind of mismanagement. I'll let them speak for themselves. I'm not gonna speak for them. But from the stories I've heard over there, Joel will say that if they've had an issue, it's normally been some kind of a management issue, and they've realized that they could do something different to avoid it. So, more evidence that nature is never to be feared, and that nature has our back, and that nature is always serving us. And, it is a natural law, the survival of the fittest thing. It's a law. So you know, if you're not born strong enough, then a weakness might get you. Weakness might get you. And, you know, that's nature saying no. Nature's like, you know, we're not going to do this because this isn't going to work. You're not going to make it. And it might sound bad, but nature is offering grace. There's no reason to prolong suffering. Nature's not really for that. Nature's not about prolonging suffering. So this whole thing that we humans, when we're humaning, are doing, I think we're a little bit too big for our britches sometimes, and we're manufacturing chemistry project foods and, you know, guised as health food, protein shakes, and I mean, there's ding dongs also, and there's zebra cakes or whatever, but protein shakes. Yeah, I'm calling you out. Protein bars. What is that? I mean, eat some meat, guys. Eat some regenerative beef. Have some regenerative beef bone broth. Have some grass-fed, you know, like 100% on grass, Jersey, A2 raw milk. It's powerful medicine. A lot of these whole foods are being villainized, and I mean, you know, they started with butter and eggs, and you know, they're constantly trying to frame nature, and then they're like, oh, we were wrong, oops. Time magazine, you know, that was framed. It's in Time magazine. I mean, for those of you who don't realize that what I'm saying about this Flexner report, it effectively centralized the food, the medical, the military, industrial complex, the financial, like economic industrial complex, education was centralized. And, you know, I think like recently I've been thinking a lot about how they're always saying, you know, Indians and Chinese people are so smart, like some of the most brilliant minds. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder. I'm thinking that we're the most trained. We're the most compliant. And that is because, you know, like our parents, I'm first generation born in the States here in America, and our parents were born slaves to the British India Company. And the only difference between our experience with slavery and what slavery was like in America is that the slavery in the States has been manipulated and used in propaganda to divide and conquer the States by prolonging this oppression just by speaking it. You know, a lot of people today who are living today, people of color who are living here today right now, they're not slaves. They weren't born slaves. Their parents weren't. Their grandparents weren't. But like our parents were, and they're super compliant. I mean, in India, they lived under British rule, which means they were slaves, okay? Until 1947, which is the year my mother was born. She was born in the middle of the blackout, so she was still, you know, born into that slavery. And that slavery mentality isn't going to go away, like, in a minute, you know, because that's a quantum leap. How do you go from 400 years of, like, actual slavery? You want to talk about oppression? I mean, the reason Indians are all over the world is because the Brits took Indian slaves with them everywhere they went and transplanted Indians all over the world. The reason that there's Indians everywhere. I mean, for us, it was different. Our families came here because they had an opportunity to work. Again, the training. Like, they didn't know that they were creators. They didn't know that they had this power to create and create their own world. I mean, if you speak to very highly institutionally educated people, they would say that, oh, create your own world. I mean, you're crazy, you know? People like to say things like, you know, Niti, you're an idealist. No, I'm actually a realist. I'm actually living in the now, and I create my own reality. And I do that because I am operating with deliberate intention. And anybody can do it, and I would like to speak your power back into you so you can do the same thing. I don't think that we are all supposed to all be in this world as repeaters. I believe that we are all supposed to operate in our full power, which is to be creators. We are creator. And the institutions would rather that you have their permission to work or to operate. And you can't have that permission if you don't have a college degree, which is just a piece of paper. That is what you get at the end of paying like an exorbitant amount of money for them to teach you nothing really, because now you have like, I guess you have a little bit of a baseline in a focused space, but then you need to get into that industry with boots on the ground and actually have some experience doing something. And in a lot of these cases, you're just supporting the bureaucratic machine and not really creating anything or doing much of anything except to, you know, punch in and punch out, punch in and punch out. And I guess I just didn't want to do that. I would have preferred to stay home and raise my children because that was more rewarding. And that's another thing this Flexner report did. Let's get back to the Flexner report again. It's divided and conquered our families. It's broken up the home. It put women out under the guise of freedom. You know, liberation. Women, we're gonna liberate you. You know, like, you've been enslaved in this domestic world. You know, you're a servant to your children and your husband. Oh my gosh. Why? Why are you serving your children and your husband? I mean, think about what that says, y'all. Like, think about it. The most noble thing I can do is to pour all of my knowledge and experience into my children. The most noble thing I can do is to properly nourish my children. The most noble thing I can do is to, you know, be the support for my husband to, you know, pave the way for our children to have the power to do whatever it is that they want with ease. That is what they did. And, you know, what people call women's lib today is absolute man hate is what it is. I don't even understand it. You know, I was all for women's lib because in the 80s, you know, I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I had a deadbeat dad who needed, I mean, he did not need to be a dad, but anyway, thank you for bringing us into this world. But my mother, you know, she had her marriage arranged with this man, and she wasn't just gonna leave him. And her daddy had to come here, and he was like, what are you doing? I didn't raise you to be abused by this lunatic. And she's like, well, you arranged my marriage with him, so, you know, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. And he's like, no, this is not working. Get him out. I did not raise you to be battered by some crazy person. And at that moment, my dad wasn't obviously too bright, because if he would have been very bright, he would have wanted to sell the house. He would have wanted to sell the house and get his money out of it. And he could have ruined us, actually, had he done that. Because at that moment in the 80s, women in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, could not own real estate. And to me, that was why we needed women's lib. You shouldn't be homeless Because God forbid your husband die, or, I mean, it doesn't have to be that he leaves you or you leave each other or whatever. But if he were literally just to die, she's homeless now. Yep, that's how it used to work. And so, you know, women can now own real estate. That's a big deal. That could have been enough. When they were saying that women need equal pay, you know, they keep trying to scream this out. The thing is that women today don't know that men in that time and before were being paid double salary, which half of it was for the wife, to make sure that the family was taken care of and that the husband was well rested and well fed and well cared for so he could perform at work. And there was no man who was able to excel in any type of managerial position or any top, you know, position without a family. Well, he had to be married and have a family. And if he didn't, he wasn't going to be in that position. They weren't going to, you know, promote single guys in a position of that much wealth. They just weren't going to do that. And that changed. That changed sometime when this women's movement became kind of convoluted or whatever. Anyway, I know it doesn't feel like that is all tied back to this Flexner report, but it is. Because when the Flexner report came out and they centralized medicine, they centralized the food system, and they pushed, this is all happening like post-World War II, okay? And they started pushing this whole feed the world agenda. And they weren't going to feed the world with any nourishing food. They were just gonna, you know, feed the world with grains. And they made it appear that grains are cheap. And what they did was they established these monoculture commodity farms, which basically were enslavement farms. And they had their slaves who voluntarily walked into slavery, voluntarily put themselves into an enormous amount of debt that has never been recovered. Okay, that's 90% of our ag bailouts, actually. And the bailout isn't even a bailout. The bailout is, or whatever you want to call it as a bailout, is just renewing their slave debt. Because what they do is they keep re-loaning, not granting, not bailing these people out. They keep re-loaning this money just to keep these people in infinite debt, which is why there is a lot of depression and drinking, and which results in illness, death, and suicide, and abuse, and, you know, that's the reason why a lot of the rural areas suffer from so much abuse and alcohol abuse and all of that. It is because of this forced modern day slavery. It's a lot, right? It's a lot to think about. I want you to think about that grain, because not only are they using that grain to feed the world, that they're not even doing a good job with, because they're using it to control the world, because, you know, they don't want the people to bite the hand that's feeding them. It's a power move. It is not graceful. It is not, this is not philanthropic work. It's not philanthropic work. It's not God's work. So, but that same machine is what is feeding industrialized livestock, which is industrializing life, which is producing animals sicker than we are, which is the reason why they can say that meat makes you sick. No, it doesn't. Meat does not make you sick. Animals sicker than you are make you sick. if you're consuming animals that are sicker than you are, they're making you sick, you don't know that they're sicker than you are because you don't see them while they're alive. You only see them dead in a pack. You're not hunting them, you're not visiting a farm, you have no idea what you're talking about. These animals are sicker than you are. They're in kidney and renal failure, and if you're eating a beast that is in kidney and renal failure, that dis-ease is going to be imposed on you as well. And if you need a scientific study to understand this logical truth that I'm sharing with you, then that's okay. You don't have to understand what I'm saying right now. One day, you're gonna come back to this crazy video and be like, hey, I didn't hear you say that last time. I can't believe she said that time. That's what's gonna happen. So, I think I'm gonna leave it right there today. I'm gonna leave it right there. It's a good amount of, good chunk of information for you guys to digest today. I just want you to know that I really appreciate everybody following me, sharing with me, and sharing my streams with other people, sharing my good news with other people. I would appreciate it if you would follow me on YouTube and Odyssey. Odyssey's where I'm really trying to go. So if you can help follow me on Odyssey and YouTube and share that with all your tribes, share it with all your peeps. Give me a like, you know. Follow me on Instagram. Come see us in Raleigh if you want to. Go to my website and buy a copy of my book if you haven't read it already. www.farm2forkmeatriot.org. FARMTOFORKMEATRIOT. It's a meat riot. RIOT.org. Farm2forkmeatriot.org. That's what works. ORG. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I will see you not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. I will be back for my walkie-talkie on Monday.